Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. I'm Brian Jones, and this is Discover a New You. So that's what we're all about, discovering a new us. So, Michael, welcome. Yeah, I was just going about to say that anyone who would like to put their name and where they're from in the chat, that would be great. Always nice to know who's tuning in from around the world. So I hope you've had a good week. Last week I did something a little different. I was very low key and talked about my own personal story, my own personal life, my work life, even, and that episode got more views than really surprised me. So anyway, so thank you for that. Piyush, welcome. Lakshmi, great. Glad you're all here today. So I thought that, it usually comes to me what I'm going to talk about. I don't do a lot of planning. I'm just not the idea of a 5-year plan, like that would be, an impossible task for me because I just can't think or imagine 5 years that far out, so even a 5-week plan is a bit much, 5-day plan. Most of my days are, and the way my life is generally is very, spontaneous and impromptu in a lot of ways. So it's hard to be on a tight schedule because a lot of different things come up. So anyway, so today I thought what came to me this week was, what is one of the biggest things that I hear about from people? And that is something like, I think something's wrong. I don't feel like I'm progressing. I feel like something's missing, or I feel like something's not right. I don't feel anything. I'm not really interested in doing my practice now. I don't feel anything is going on. I mean, have any of you experienced that? I bet you have. I know I have many, many times. And it's disconcerting because we as human beings, when we try something like heartfulness, we do experience something. We do connect. We do feel something profound in meditation as a result of the yogic transmission, which is unique to heartfulness. So we do feel that. This practice is very experiential. So, after we're into the practice for, a few weeks or a few months, then we wonder what's happened when all of a sudden we're not really feeling this transmission that much, and we're not feeling anything going on in the sittings. And, again, it's typical human tendency that when something like that happens, what do? We immediately go to the negative, right? Immediately we go to the negative. We go to, oh, I missed my cleaning this week, or I haven't done my cleaning in a week, and that's why now I'm not feeling anything. And, now how do I make up for that? Or, I missed my meditation this week. I mean, we suddenly want to look at all of the reasons why we're not feeling the way we hope we should be feeling. Everybody does this. And so the truth is, and there's a few variations of this, but the truth is what Babaji talks about. He says that after we've done the practice for, 2-3 months, that we reach a point where we don't feel like anything's going on. And he says at that point, our inclination is that we want to drop off in our practice, that we lose interest. Because look, if we don't feel anything, we lose interest. This is just how it is. So he cautions about this 2-month, 3-month period. But then he goes on to clarify that actually what's happening when we have these times when we're not experiencing as we were, is that it means we've crossed another stage, another spiritual stage. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that, in this realm of expanding consciousness that we talk about and that we're trying to understand, that when we approach a new spiritual condition inside, or we may be approaching another, spiritual center or chakra, when we merge with the spiritual state we've been in, when we become totally identical with the spiritual state we've been in, whether we know what that is or not. But when we become identical with it, we can't feel it. We can't feel it because we've become that. So when we don't feel something, very often it's a positive. It's a positive. It means, oh, wow, I've crossed another stage. And I know we never think about it like that. And even with me telling you this, it won't kick in. We probably will still feel like something's wrong, something's missing. But I want to let you know this. I want you to let you know so that we can start having a more positive approach and more positive understanding of the spiritual journey and what's happening along this spiritual journey. It's kind of like, when we become identical, the state of identicality, when we become identical with the spiritual state that we have been approaching, it's almost like how can I put this? I like to use the example of climbing Mount Everest. I'm really interested. It's a keen sort of passion of mine that climbing Mount Everest, not to climb Mount Everest, because there's no way I'm going to climb Mount Everest. I have no interest in climbing Mount Everest, but it's the journey itself it's fascinating to me. And I watch every special I can on TV. If it has anything to do with climbing Mount Everest and what it takes to do that, I watch all of those. So in terms of our spiritual journey, what does it mean? Well, if you know anything about climbing Mount Everest, it's so high that you just can't go there and you just can't go climb the mountain in a few days. You have to stay there for quite a period of time because your physical body needs to acclimate. It needs to adjust to the altitude. So the first place you arrive is called base camp, and that's more at the foot of the mountain. And you stay there for some time as you're planning and the weather conditions and everything are good to journey up to to the next base camp. And there's 5 or 6 of these base camps all up the mountain. And what you do is you ascend up to the next base camp, and then you stay there for maybe a day or one afternoon, and then you have to come back down again. And then you go up there again and you stay for a little bit longer, and then you have to come back down. And basically what you're doing is you're adjusting to a new environment. And as your body acclimates to the new environment, when you get to that next base camp and you can stay there, then you're just hanging out and it kind of, becomes the same old, same old. All right, here I am again, and I feel fine and nothing's unusual and it's a little boring. And, you get anxious to move on because you don't feel like anything now is happening. So the spiritual journey is something like this. As we approach a new point, a new chakra, a new stage in our journey and this inner journey, at first there's some excitement there. We feel that things are going on. We feel a new sort of environment is happening inside, and we're feeling the effects of the transmission. But as we get acclimated to this new dimension of consciousness, then we just get used to it. And eventually we start to just become that state. And then it gets kind of, okay. We don't think that, oh, it's kind of ho hum, but, inwardly we just get adjusted to it. And we become so merged in that state that we really start to not be able to perceive it. And we become totally identical with it, as I said earlier, then we don't feel anything going on for some time. All right, so that's the cause of a lot of the problems. That's when we start to say, I think something's wrong. I don't feel like I'm progressing. What's wrong with me? That's very often when that happens. So nothing's wrong. So what do you do when you feel like that? Well, the best thing to do is to just continue on with your meditation. Don't slack off. Um, make another conviction to yourself, to really buckle down and just do the practice. And, when you meditate, just have a prayerful thought inwardly that, thank you for all I've received. I'm ready to move forward. Babaji was always, telling Lalaji these things, he was always, could anticipate the next stage that was coming, and then he would work to attain that. And then after he attained it, he's telling Lalaji, okay, he's already put the feeling out there to Lalaji that, ready to get on with the journey. And so when you read Babaji's autobiography, it's really amazing. He was just so in tune with Lalaji and so disciplined in the way he approached his own path. Of course, look, Babaji, we're not Babaji. So it's a little different for us. But when we do, reach that point where we're not feeling much, if you just continue with the practice and have this prayerful, acknowledgement within yourself to the master and, entice the master to continue your journey. It's the beautiful thing about that is it sort of builds our relationship with our inner guide, which we want to do. Because, Daji has said, that the problem we have is not that we're asking too much of the master or the masters. He said, we're not asking enough. He said they want to give us all and everything. And yet we don't long or pine for, the whole objective all at once, And so if we create that relationship, and this is an inner relationship I'm talking about for the most part, where, you're journaling. And so you're writing down your condition. You're basically writing to master when you're writing your journal. And when we offer prayer at night, just reviewing the day and reviewing where we're at and just acknowledging that, okay, this is where I've been, but now I am so ready to move forward. This will really bring about the next stage, and you'll start to experience things in your meditation. And look, I want to share a story, and I shared this, I think, quite a long time ago, but it's worth sharing again now that I mentioned about writing in the journal. One time, there was someone in our center, and she told us that every time she wrote in her journal or diary, she always wrote, "Dear Master," like she was doing a letter. So she always wrote, "Dear Master," and then she wrote her diary out, whatever she was writing, and signed it like a letter, affectionately so and so. I won't give the name. So this person had never met Chariji before. And so she had been going on like this for a while. And finally, maybe on the third year, Chariji came to the US and she had a chance to meet him in person for the first time. And so she introduced herself. She said, "Chari, I'm so glad I'm meeting you for the very first time. My name is so and so. And she says, I'm so happy to meet you. And Charlie looked at her very puzzled. He said, well, no. He said, no, I know you. And she said, oh, she kind of laughed, no, 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 Master, I'm just meeting you now for the very first time. He says, no, I know you. I've been reading all the letters you've been writing me. So, so this is what we really need to understand, is that ultimately the relationship with the guide, the master, these concepts, ultimately in the long run dissolves. But prior to that, it's really beneficial to develop an inner relationship with the spiritual guide. And that relationship can be on a very personal level. It doesn't have to be, complicated. It just needs to be your simple self just telling the master, this is what's happening with me. And, I could use your help. And the master will come through. And the more we place ourselves like that before that inner guide, the more they will help us. And so I really encourage you all to take that up and keep that relationship going. Okay. So just looking at my notes here. Okay. So the other thing I would like to talk about along these lines is when we have a lot of thoughts. And this is another thing we hear all the time, especially from newcomers. They always talk about, I'm just having so many thoughts. I can't get out of my head. What do I do? So when we first start the practice of heartfulness or any meditation practice, I think we have a lot of expectations. I think we expect that, okay, I'm going to meditate today. And as a result of me meditating today, I'm going to have a completely thoughtless mind. I'm not going to have any thoughts. And I'm going to reach, this thoughtless meditative state. And that's just not really the case. We've spent a lifetime training our mind to believe that all of this thought activity is its natural state. So we have trained the mind to believe that all these thoughts are its natural condition. So with the tool of meditation, what we're doing is we're actually slowly retraining the mind out of that. We're retraining the mind and giving it space to settle and become regulated and become more normal in its function. So we're always going to have some sort of thought activity. I mean, Babaji clearly says that if we reached a totally thoughtless state, that we would die. He said there'd be no reason for us to be here because the mind thinks, and the mind is part of this life. So there will always be some thought activity, but we get to a point where we're not drawn into those thoughts. We're able to remain distant from that thought stream. And so it's just there in the background very subtly. So the other thing about this is that we're not just doing meditation. This is an important point. What we're doing is actually the practice of meditation. The practice of meditation. So I find for people just starting, they forget about the practice part. So when they sit and meditate, they initially try to envision some sort of light in the heart, usually trying to grasp onto a concept. Try to visualize a light or try to feel a lightness or try to, some way make it concrete, this object of meditation. And That makes sense, okay, because it's hard to just sit down and meditate for the first time and not have something that you're focused on, okay? But generally what happens is that people think they're only supposed to do that in the beginning when they start. And then they forget about, no, we're supposed to gently return to the heart. And when we get caught up in a train of thought again and we realize it, then we're supposed to gently return to the object of meditation, which in this case is, the source of light is there in the heart and it's drawing us inwards. It's a very subtle idea. But when we meditate, we're supposed to do this as the practice. This is the practice of meditation, where when we get caught up in a train of thought, no, we do something. We take an action, and that action is we return to the area of the heart. This is the very way that we're retraining the mind out of its old random habits of just thinking randomly on its own. And now we're giving it some direction and reminding the mind that it is really the heart that is the natural point of focus, natural place of residence for our awareness. It's the heart and not the mind. And so the practice of meditation is retraining the mind out of that and putting the heart back in control of our lives. And when the day comes, and a day does come, when you clearly feel that the heart is back in charge of your life again, and you feel like there's more communication coming from the heart and more guidance, inner guidance that's coming from the heart, and we learn to depend on that more and more and not let the mind trip us up. When that day comes, that's a happy day. That's a great, what can I say? A great base camp that we've attained on the mountain when we realize that the heart is back in control of our existence again. So these are some of the early things that we face in our meditation practice, but it's good. And I know, look, most of you are been meditating for a long time, so you know these things, you face these things. But sometimes I like to talk about these topics just so that we help have a context to explain this to other people that come, that are going to ask you these questions. And so it really helps. Okay, and speaking of questions, I have a question. Someone has just asked a question. Kartik says, how to be more sensitive to our condition, to feel the condition mentioned in Towards Infinity. How to be sure that the journey in the heart region is started. Okay. So this is a little bit of this is where faith starts to come in. Okay. Faith, or Shraddha, is a very important aspect of this path. So when I say that faith is important, I'm not talking about believing. I'm not talking about believing in something without proof. I'm talking about having faith that the practice is working for you. Why am I saying this? Why am I going down this direction? It's because we can't always really know. All right. I can assure you that after you've had your very first sitting with a trainer, that you are connected with the source that Babaji talks about. Okay, from that day onward. So do I expect you to believe that? I can say that to you, but are you going to believe it? You're not going to believe it. But faith develops from a series of small successes. And so when you have enough meditations where you close your eyes and you do go deep within, and suddenly, we find that we're not even aware of our body, we're not aware of our thoughts, we're not aware of our mind, we're not aware of our existence. We're very deep within. That is a state of samadhi. That's a state of the pure mind before, the movement started to set in and all of this thought activity started. When we have experienced this enough, we have to allow ourselves to have faith in this process. Yes, I've experienced this so many times. It's amazing. And at the end of the meditation, I feel whole. I feel complete. I feel transformed. We have to remind ourselves of this and allow that to blossom into a sense of faith that this meditation practice we've taken up is the correct one. And we are learning from it, having experiences from it. So, we can't always know, Kartik, where we're at in this journey. But we can have faith that the process is working and confidence. Now, you point out how to be sure that the journey in heart region has started. It started when you had your first sitting. It started. And, the other thing I'll share this, I'll share, sure, why not, is look, I find that, I give a lot of sittings. And I find that, especially nowadays, the journey of the heart, what we want to call the yatra, it can start in the very first day of someone coming in their very first sitting. This yatra can begin. Okay. I mean, it happens all the time. So, I want you to be confident that, look, you probably moved far along, much further than you have any idea of. Okay. And so the question for you would be, how do I become sensitive? How do I develop sensitivity to my condition? Okay. The reason, the way that we can become more sensitive is basically through the cleaning practice. That's one way. When we do the cleaning in the right way, and I'm going to talk about that too. But when we do the cleaning, we become clearer inside. We become more sensitive. So, the next morning when you get up and do your morning meditation, you should do a few minutes of cleaning of point B, which is located, well, I can't really show you here and I don't have a quick diagram to show you, but this point B cleaning, you do that in the morning, and then you just try and observe and just take a moment and just don't force it. Don't force like you're trying to, see. Okay. Because when we become sensitive to our condition, we're not always seeing something. We may be feeling something. It may be a subtle feeling. That can happen as well. And there can be a feeling of heaviness in a point. Sometimes there's a feeling even of pain, a painfulness in some of these points, especially I find in points 3 and 4, there can be pain we can sometimes feel there. So these are ways that we can know how to develop our sensitivity. And when you start working on that with the intention that you want to become more sensitive, and you offer that as a prayerful suggestion at bedtime, that I'd like to become more sensitive, you'll start to see, okay, I felt like I was totally clear all the way through my chest region, and then today I felt some tapping here at this point 4. Okay, so there you go. That's one way that you can begin to understand, oh, there's work going on at point 4, and maybe I'm at point 4. So it's subtle like that. It's, for some people, they can see it easily. But for most of us, we need to work at it and know all the ways that it can show up. Michael Doheny, my friend, nice to know you're there and feel your presence. I was actually, you came to mind yesterday, Michael. So it's nice to see you here today. All right. Someone else has asked a question. Can heartfulness be a lone journey without the help of the preceptors, making use of HeartSap or online sessions with Daji or other heads? Well, other heads, no, that's an interesting That's an interesting word. um, so yeah, yes. The answer is yes. Of course, you can, and probably there's thousands of people out there in the world, maybe tens of thousands, who do the practice of heartfulness that have never had a sitting. I know this because I get contacted by people every so often that say, "Oh, I'm loving this heartfulness practice. I've been doing it for the past 2 years. I've never had a sitting though. I've never met a trainer or anything." So, people hear about it and they start to take it up on their own. And, some people use the app. I don't find all that many people using the app, to be honest with you, but some people like to use the app. That's one thing. Um, to, but yeah. So the answer is yes, you can do that. But to be honest with you, I think when you have the personal relationship with a trainer, and I think when you have the mindset that you have a spiritual guide who is a real guide, who is there with you along this journey, I think that that's when you start to take off at light speed on your spiritual path. And I know, especially in the West, people don't want a guru. They just don't want it. It's how it is. And I know for people in India, that sounds surprising, but no, the whole rest of the world, nobody's really interested in having a guru. This is just how it is. So it's a long, long process of people getting used to this idea. In the Christian faith, just to give you an example, in the Christian faith, there's a saying, "Call no man master." And every Christian knows this saying. So, and yet Jesus himself was a master. So the mindset everywhere else in the world, except India, is one where a spiritual master, guru, guide is not easily adopted. And so many people take up this journey on their own. And they're fine with getting the sittings from a trainer because it's someone that they can relate to one-on-one on a human level. And that's the first relationship that really starts in this path, is the relationship with the person who told you about heartfulness meditation. There's your first relationship. The next relationship is the person who's maybe giving you sittings, the preceptor or trainer. That's another level of relationship. Then there's another relationship that happens, is that eventually someone who's started the meditation comes to a group session. And now they have another relationship that happens with other people doing the meditation. So this is a long, long series of trust building. It's trust building. It's all about trust. You don't trust people when it's good to trust everybody. Don't get me wrong, but to develop a personal level of trust with somebody, you get to know them, you talk to them, you become friends with them. Okay, I feel good about knowing this person. And the same way with the group. Boy, I really enjoyed talking with everybody. And now you feel a sense of trust building. This is where it all starts. And over a period of time, it might be a long time. For someone in the West, it could be months, it could be years. Many times it's years before they eventually come around to the trust of the spiritual guide, of the master, and developing that relationship. It's a long process. So I want to mention that to you so you understand how different it is outside of India. If you're living in India, it's just completely different. It's nothing like India. It's very different. And it's sometimes a challenge, but people are really open as well. And so they're seeking, intensely seeking, and they're really open to the experience of it. And it's really amazing to see. So there's a lot of pluses and a lot of dynamics to it. All right. So I kind of got off on a tangent here, and now I'm seeing a lot more questions, and I want to start the meditation. So let me just quickly look at the questions and see if I can take up a couple more. Okay, Kartik says, during meditation, we are making a very subtle suggestion, but cleaning is a forceful process where we are using will and forcing the complexity to go out in the form of smoke. Please correct me. Well, if you just told me to please correct you, obviously you think you're wrong. So why would you say this? I'm just playing with you. But look, it's not a forceful process. This is, and I think that this is from this terminology that we've had for many decades, willpower. Willpower. So we think that there's some power that we need when we apply the will. No, this isn't to do with it at all. So now I want to show you I'm going to give you the secret, all of you, to doing the cleaning in the most effective way that will be 100 times more effective than any time you've ever done the cleaning before in your life. Here it is. We should never sit down to do the cleaning and ever have the thought that there's grossness or anything heavy inside of us that needs to be cleaned. We should never, ever have that thought. We should never think, oh, what a day I've had. I got to accumulate. Must have all this junk inside me. I got to sit down and I got to work at cleaning this. You just created a huge job for yourself. So the way around this is by a change of attitude. And the change of attitude is that even before you sit down for cleaning, even before you sit down, you feel, oh, I can't wait to uncover the divinity in my heart. I can't wait. Wow. There you go. See, here's the secret. Grossness can't exist where there's divinity. So if you keep telling yourself that you've got all this grossness that needs to be cleaned, you're creating more grossness. And you're creating an attitude of, I have to apply force to remove it because you have an idea that it's grossness and it's stuff. All of that is incorrect. When you sit down and you have this positive attitude, oh, I can't wait to uncover the divine in my heart, you will see, then you just start the process. You just lightly, you just feel, oh yeah, everything's leaving me now. And it's just going out the back. And then you just stay with that continual smoke or vapor going out the back. I personally prefer vapor. Why do I prefer the idea of vapor? Is because when you see steam or vapor evaporating off of the surface of a lake in the morning or evening, it just effortlessly just goes and just dissipates. Whereas when I think of smoke, there's always some residual darkness or something associated with it. So I'm just telling you my own process. So I sit down, I can't wait to uncover the divine in my heart. And then I just feel like this gentle mist is just going out my back. And like that, the effect of this change of attitude will be so pronounced that you are going to be astounded how easy it is to do the cleaning. And you're going to find that you're going to sit down and in 5 minutes, you feel so light. Yeah, this is the way around it because thought is powerful. Thought is powerful. Force is not. Force is dissipation of energy. Force is dissipating energy. But thought is powerful in just the subtle suggestion, and the attitude is the most important thing. So that's what I want to share with you. Kartik, please, you try this and you report back to me. You send me an email, okay? And you tell me you try this for a week and you send me an email, brianjonesconnect@gmail.com, and tell me how this technique works for you. I really want to know. Okay, I'm going to keep going with a few more answers here to these questions since seems to be on people's minds today. After meditation, if we were completely absorbed within, like nothingness, how do I make it dynamic in day-to-day life, like manifesting love, compassion? How do we manifest that nothingness state? Deepa, this is a beautiful, beautiful question. And it's such a human and natural question to ask. But, do we manifest nothingness? I think I think the case is what happens is that when we start to clear away everything and not feel so guilty and burdened with guilt and with I should do this, I should do that, and when we just can accept ourselves and embrace, yes, I am that beautiful presence that I feel in meditation. At the end of meditation, I feel so complete. When you really just embrace that that's the real you, right? That's embracing the real self. And the real self, by its nature, is happier, it's content, it's loving. We are loving, compassionate, content beings. So you don't have to think about manifesting nothingness. You know, it's just that when we get rid of all the somethingness, we automatically we automatically express the beautiful being that you are. See, it's like that. So don't set aside all worries. You are connected. You are totally connected. You are a great divine being of light and love and contentedness and compassion. You are that. So just let it be. Okay. There's two more. I'll take them up. Just before coming out of meditation, I'm getting negative thoughts. How to not get those negative thoughts and how to handle that. Okay, it happens to me on a rare occasion too. And I think sometimes we're picking this up from the atmosphere. Here's what I think is the scenario. We've just had a meditation and we've just created this vacuum inside and we're feeling this wholeness. But this vacuum inside sort of, things rush into it. And I think sometimes we're picking up thoughts from the atmosphere that rush in. And these thoughts or vibrations or frequencies, they trigger, these thought responses in our mind that really aren't ours. It's just the mind starts to interpret as something negative because it's picking this up. Don't believe it. Don't just let all that go and just don't believe any of that. Just let that go gently. Say, nope, immediately come back to source. No, this is the real connection. That's how to do it. Just before getting up in the morning, before I meditate, remember my thoughts or dreams. I try to remember them. After meditation, it's as if I am witnessing two realms of existence. Well, okay, Ila. So here's what I would prefer you to try and make it an exploration. This is good. I understand what you're saying. Yes, I get it. But when we wake up in the morning, we will have things that our first thoughts will often be something from our subconscious mind or maybe from a dream that was an intermingling of a little bit of consciousness with subconsciousness that creates the dream condition. But please take up this be cleaning. So instead of allowing yourself to engage with these thoughts that are there in your mind when you first wake up, go brush your teeth, wash up, do what you have to do, sit down, and please now do the be cleaning and imagine that just all of this, smoke or vapor is coming out of point B out the front. It's just leaving you, and it's just uncovering that beautiful condition of the soul that's there behind it. So you do that cleaning for about 5 minutes even. It's enough. And just watch how your whole condition now will be transformed. And your meditation is going to be very profound. Because otherwise, whenever we think about something, we give it power again. And so in the morning, we don't want to start our day with giving, nighttime experiences power by thinking about them. So please just try this be cleaning and report back to me in a week or two and tell me how that's going. I would be really interested. Okay, another question, and this will be the last question, and we're going to meditate together. All right. How do I know if I really love my master? Sometimes I feel I am pretending to love him. Here's what I feel from you right now. I feel that you do love the master. And I feel that you do because that's your inner longing. Because you wouldn't ask this question if you wouldn't have an inner longing of loving the master. So sometimes the mind trips us up and we start having doubts, and doubt poisons our will. Okay. And that's what happens. Now, I want to say something about this. We reach various stages in our journey where we can't feel the love that we'd like to feel, because we as humans, we want to feel that love. We want to feel it. But there's a beautiful old couplet. It's called Footsteps in the Sand. And this, it goes, I'm going to summarize, that the person realizes, oh, Lord, you know, I've seen that you've walked beside me through my life. I see that our two sets of footprints in the sand. But then, Lord, there were times in my life when you left me and I did not see your footsteps in the sand, and I was going through a lot of hardship and difficulties. Why, Lord, did you abandon me? And God says, my son or daughter, he says, those that wasn't me abandoning you. Those single set of footsteps that you saw were my footsteps when I was carrying you. Okay. So it's a powerful story. So you have to. This is where faith comes in again. You know, I want you to just know that whether you're feeling love or not, the Master's love is always there with you. And sometimes he's carrying us, and we don't know that because we're going through some cleaning, and times when we're so caught up in our thoughts and our processing of what's happening in our life, we don't, we think we're abandoned. But no, I can assure you, Master's carrying you through those times, and that's when you have to have that faith, and he'll always be there. Now, I want to add one more thing to that. It's okay if sometimes you feel like you need to pretend that you're having love, an intense love. It's okay to also to purposely pretend if you need to do so. That's okay. Babaji actually recommends that. He said, sometimes, if you need to pretend that you're feeling the love or connection to Master, you can pretend you're feeling it. And he said it will become then more natural to you. So I want to give you those options. But look, you're totally connected. You don't have anything to worry about. Come on now. All right. Okay, so I want to meditate now. And let's start with just a lightness of being. Let's start with a faith and confidence that we know that we're all together connected. We know where we're connected. We know that we're connected to the source. And now let's share that together. So please sit comfortably. And gently close your eyes. Let's take a slow, deep breath in. And let it go. Let your shoulders relax. And your arms and hands. Let your awareness drop down to the heart. with the knowledge that the source of love, the source of light, lightness, we are that. That source is forever present in our heart. Make that a joyful knowing. And now let's rest on that source within and feel the source is inviting us to our true home. Let's stay with this thought. That's all. So let's take a moment and observe how we're feeling. And let's just make the thought that this peaceful feeling is expanding within us and all around us. Okay, whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. All right, everyone. I want to thank you for being here today and making the time to attend this session. And I want to thank you all for the questions today too. I think those were very useful questions. I appreciate that. Michael, thank you also for the happy face. Appreciate that. All right, everyone. So until we meet again next week, as I always say, stay with the heart. All the best.